Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. This video is about how to get into Oxford University, aimed at those who are applying for undergraduate study. By the way, and I don't represent Oxford University, so you must surely know that Oxford is in the United Kingdom and one of the most distinguished universities in the world. There's a friendly rivalry between Oxford and Cambridge in the UK, but if you're watching this video, you're presumably well apprised of Oxford's reputation. So going up to Oxford is something you need to think about around 2 years before you wish to matriculate, that's be accepted into the university. So if you're in the last couple of years of school, it's a good time to start thinking about it. Your penultimate year, you really need to decide, is this a goal of yours or not? You need to be achieving top grades in more or less everything if you're going to apply. So if you're in the UK, you'll be doing A-levels, possibly International Baccalaureate. In your GCSEs, you will have received top grades in almost every subject, A star. I know it's moving into numerical grades, so top according to the new numerical system. Or wherever you are in the world, you need to be receiving close to perfect scores. Doesn't mean 100% in every subject, but close to that. Now, for certainly the subject you wish to apply to, yes, you need to be very close to 100%. If you're applying for a mathematically related subject where you've got to be close to full marks on that, you could be a bit weaker in the humanities and vice versa. And if you're significantly below that, then it's not going to happen. It's just an unrealistic goal. Then you need to think about your subject. In case you're not familiar with the UK university situation, people usually just do one subject. Now they could do 2 or more, but if they do 2 or more, they tend to be closely related. Like French and Spanish, they're clearly allied subjects, or physics and chemistry, or something like that, or English and history. Occasionally people will do subjects which are not obviously that closely connected, such as French and philosophy, or history and economics. Again, those 2 are somewhat related. So you can see with the combinations you can do. Occasionally you can do 3 subjects. One of the famous 3 subject combinations is philosophy, politics and economics, known at Oxford as PPE. So make sure that your preferred subject or subjects are available in Oxford. Oxford doesn't do everything. You can do all the mainstream subjects. The ones which are not available are veterinary medicine, architecture, dentistry, and that's about it of the well-known ones. You need to ask yourself what your priority is. Do you want to go to Oxford University at all costs? As in, don't really mind which subject you do, and don't mind which college you go to. You ought to know that Oxford University is divided into 39 colleges, a few of which are for postgraduate students only. So as an undergraduate, that's a choice of about 35. So it's a federal system. The colleges exist within the university, a bit like states would exist within a federation. Do you want to go there because you want to read a specific subject and that's the priority, even if applying for that subject reduces your chances of getting in? I'll come back to this later. Or is employability the priority? You want a degree in a subject which will maximize your chances of getting a job, particularly a handsomely remunerated job. So decide that. The 3 possible priorities could be getting into Oxford, could be doing a subject that you find enjoyable, or could be doing a subject which gives you the best chance of getting a lucrative job. So consider those. Although three of those things matter, but which one matters most to you? And I don't have to decide that today or next week, but you need to decide that before you apply and make an application on that basis. Right, so the next step. Some subjects are much easier to get into than others. So classicists, they always think they're terribly clever, but they don't like to be reminded of this, but their subject is about the easiest one to get into for. By classics, I mean Latin and ancient Greek. Yes, one can go up to Oxford never having learnt ancient Greek because no state schools offer it. Yeah, they've always done Latin, but they have to do Greek ab initio. And if your Latin is any use, you know that means from the beginning, like initial. However, people who start from zilch in Greek, they still have to get up to the same standards as the others by the end. People have been doing ancient Greek for 10 years. They will be given extra classes, but no allowances are made in the exam. They sit in the same exam. So you need to be off the charts in terms of linguistic ability especially considering we're talking about a dead language, not a spoken one. The most difficult subject to get into, last time I checked, was law. Only about 5% of applicants are accepted for law. Classics, it can be as high as 50% because very few people do classics. I mean, only the very clever ones are even offered Latin at school usually. Some subjects are easy to get in for others. Anything between 5 and 50% chance of acceptance, depending on your subject choice. The subjects with the lowest acceptance rate, surprise, surprise, are those with the best employment prospects. Things like business and management, economics. They'll be snapped up by banks and the like once they graduate. The ones with the which are easy to get in for are not so clearly linked to a remunerative career. Then college choice. Which college do you want to go to? We don't have time to talk through all of them, but some colleges are more fashionable than others. If it's just been on University Challenge, it will get more applicants in the subsequent year. The smaller, less popular colleges, well, it's easier to get in there. I recall at Lincoln years ago, for geography, one year there were 0 applicants, which is staggering, which is a coincidence. So a college in a year for a subject will typically have 10 places. Might be fewer, occasionally it's more. But what happens is all colleges usually oversubscribe, something like 40 applicants for 10 places, maybe 50 applicants, is some of those applicants will be sent to be interviewed by other colleges. And so you might get into a college that you didn't apply to. That's what happened to me. All right, so if you want to begin, let's say in 2020, the academic year begins in October 2020, you'd have to submit your application in October 2019, as in 12 months in advance. And no, they don't accept late applications, so bear that in mind. Be very clear about that. Obviously, there's a special application form. You'll apply through UCAS, University and Colleges Admission Service, UCAS. Some people pronounce it UCAS. And Oxford University has agreed that they will only ever accept undergraduate applicants who apply via UCAS. So don't believe you can approach the college or the university directly. So there's a UCAS form as well as a special Oxford application form on which you say which college you want to apply for. And get it right. I know somebody who said he wanted to go to St. Peter's in the UCAS form, and in the application form he said he wanted to go to Lady Margaret Hall, so he wasn't consistent. Lucky to get an interview at all if you get something that basic wrong. Incidentally, the Dons will not meet you. Don is an Oxford slang word for professor or lecturer. Anyone who teaches there is called a Don. It's not rude, but it's just informal. They will meet you at open days, but they will not arrange special meetings because they're very worried of being accused of nepotism or accepting any kind of inducement to give you an unfair advantage. If they're your parents' friends, they may well choose not to meet you for several months before you apply, lest anybody accuse them of nepotism. People in some part of the world don't realise this, but no, you can't bribe your way in. They're very worried that they could be accused of accepting charitable donations even for the sake of accepting whoever it is. And Oxford University has been caught in stings, but not for about 20 years, of accepting charitable donations. Not for a Don personally, but for the college. But even that was considered to be grossly unethical. It had career-terminating effects for those involved. So how can you enhance your applications? Well, enter competitions. They're essay writing competitions in your chosen subject, anything like that. Get involved. If you can win a prize, that's a great thing. Even if you entered, that counts for something. You really have to go above and beyond what an ordinary pupil would do. There are open days. Each college will run open days. Sometimes you get even to stay overnight. Go up, take a look at the place. Do you like the feel of the place? You must visit. If you've never visited the place, it's not a good idea to apply. I know somebody who went to university, he'd never visited that city before he started, and he ended up disliking it and dropping out. Bad news. And then you just feel less daunted by the place. And maybe you don't want to go, which is fine, but you had a chance to make an informed decision. And so colleges as well as and subjects have open days as well. Meet the Dons. It'll demystify it for a bit. And don't imagine that everybody is incredibly posh. Some people are. Most people are not. So I think it's probably one of the least prejudiced places in the world in terms of race, religion, sexuality, things like that. It's a very open-minded place. You'll find acceptance there. So read around your subject. Don't just do what's on the curriculum. Do so much more. You can't really emphasize that enough. Right, so you apply that October. and hopefully you'll be summoned to an interview in December. Occasionally you'll be de-summoned. If you're in the United States, they sometimes send dons out so you can be interviewed in the United States, not in your home, but I think it's either New York or Los Angeles. You have to go to the nearer one. As for going to the interview, they do not pay travel expenses, by the way. If you get to go to Oxford for an interview, you get to stay there overnight for 2 or 3 nights, which is a lot of fun. So interview, you might have 1 interview, you might have 2 or 3, depending on how seriously they take you. They de-summon some people from interview at the first stage, others they summon. They might reject you after the first, or definitely want you after the first. So for 2 or 3 days, you can be summoned to more interviews or not, sent to another college. What else? These interviews are as short as 20 minutes. They could be as long as 40 minutes. The longer the better, really. And I suppose I ought to do a separate interview video about those. So prepare for them. Anticipate the probable questions. They will ask you about any essays you sent in. You will have been asked to send some academic work. They will ask you about what's on your UCAS form. So prepare sensible answers. Role play, rehearse. Find out who the dons are at that college in your subject. Find out what the research interests are. Suck up to them. Say you've read their book and actually read it in case they ask any questions. And don't lie to them in case they discover. It's not worth it. There are some extra exams for particular subjects, and that's so complicated, it depends on the subject. So you might need to do extra exams whilst you're there or just before to see that you're fit to be considered. Occasionally, well, if you're applying for a language, they will speak that language to you if you've studied it before. If you're applying for something like maths, physics, chemistry, they may get you to do some algebra, an equation, actually in the interview. So these are some of the basics of applying to Oxford University as an undergraduate.